Well, we are officially in the home stretch of the 2025-2026 NBA regular season, and this is where contenders really begin to start to separate themselves. And now it's time to see what the San Antonio Spurs do down the stretch. They got things started off with huge wins over Phoenix and Sacramento in the I-35 series, but they just, as I'm filming this, came off the hands of an absolute gutsy victory over the Detroit Pistons, which I'll get into in a few minutes. So, Phil Jackson's 40-20 rule states that in order to be considered a real contender, you have to win 40 games before you lose 20. Well, the Spurs are now 41-16, and by this rule, they are contenders. So it's safe to say that the Spurs have completely exceeded expectations. Some markets had them making the play-in at best. 40 wins was what ESPN set their line at. But now, is it time to have the conversation on if the San Antonio Spurs are truly capable of winning an NBA championship this season? Well, yes and no. I think they can, but it will not be easy. I believe that this team is fully capable of winning an NBA championship, and I would not be surprised if there's a reality where they host a Larry O'Brien in June. I'm not saying this team will win the championship. I'm just saying I think they're capable of winning a championship. And it all starts with closing out the regular season strong. And they got a really tough schedule if they want to get this done and hold on to the second seed, maybe even the number one seed in the Western Conference. 18 more games against current play-in or playoff teams. They play Denver 3 more times. They play Philly twice. They've got Detroit another time. Other teams include Houston, Boston, New York, Charlotte, Toronto. They face the new look Clippers 3 times. I said post All-Star break is really where contenders begin to separate themselves, and this schedule can really prove that the San Antonio Spurs are who we all think they actually are. By record, it's the 8th hardest schedule remaining for the rest of the league. But you know who has the first and the second hardest schedules? Denver at first and Oklahoma City Thunder at second. Which then leads to beg the question, can the Spurs potentially get the number one seed? I'm just saying there's a reality where Oklahoma City just doesn't finish the season the way they started. And that's really how this mid-season section has gone for them. But the Spurs are in the rearview mirror of the Thunder. And not a lot of people are talking about it. As of right now, they're 2.5 games out of first place in the Western Conference. And since starting 24-1, the Thunder are 19-13. Now, to be fair, they have battled a multitude of injuries, but that is something the Spurs need to take advantage of. While Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and J-Dub are out for a period of time, the Spurs need to do whatever they can to handle business and try and close that gap as much as possible, because the Thunder have struggled down the stretch as of recently. Now, if the Thunder continue on the trend of what I said, where All-Star break is where contenders get out in front and separate themselves, then Oklahoma City should probably go on a run right here if they have everybody healthy. But that's been a big struggle for them this season. Obviously, the Spurs have had Oklahoma City's number, so we'll see what happens come playoff time. And that's a really big question of what happens when the Spurs reach the playoffs. Well, I don't know, but if you want to find out, make sure you drop that subscribe and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. A lot of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel, so if you guys would just take 2 seconds to go down there and hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot. That would help me push my videos out to a much broader audience. So if you guys aren't subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on the post notification icon so you never miss when I upload a video here on Ty Talk Sports. And now the question we all want to know: what happens for the Spurs team come playoff time? Regardless of where this team finishes in the Western Conference, whether it's first, whether it's 8th, there's going to be playoff basketball in San Antonio. They've separated themselves so far. They have a huge lead of the second seed in the Western Conference. There's going to be playoff basketball for the San Antonio Spurs this postseason. That's the vibe. That's the assumption. That's the goal. Everyone knows in the organization that this is what the goal is. Harrison Barnes said the other night that the Spurs have 30 more dress rehearsals before the playoffs. And so that's what this team's expectations are. The narrative is that the Spurs have no playoff experience. And that's correct to an extent. You look at this young team and say, yeah, they have no playoff experience. They're a second-round exit. Maybe Western Conference Finals at the most. But this team has plenty of playoff experience. They just don't have it together. You might ask, Ty, what do you mean by that? First of all, I am not worried about this team's chemistry come playoff time because this team has levels of chemistry that we have not seen really since the Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili days. I haven't seen a more cohesive unit, and obviously winning helps, but this team is just on the same page. The brothership is there. The connection on the court is there. It's just all clicking for this San Antonio Spurs team. So now we get back to playoff experience. Like, what does that look like? This team hasn't made the playoffs since 2019. Where's the playoff experience coming from? Okay, Harrison Barnes, NBA champion. Luke Cornett, NBA champion. De'Aaron Fox led his team to the playoffs on his own and went band for band with prime Steph Curry for 7 games straight. The only reason that Sacramento pushed that series to 7 games was because De'Aaron Fox put that team on his back and decided to go shot for shot with Steph Curry. And I fully think the Spurs could get some sort of version of that come playoff time. I understand that De'Aaron Fox has been in a much different role this season as an off-ball guard. And here's the thing, even I don't like that role. I'm not happy with that because we all know the scoring machine that De'Aaron Fox was in Sacramento. And we want to see that with the Spurs. But right now, he is deferring to Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper's development for the long term. Come playoff time, De'Aaron Fox is going to have the ball in his hands a lot more, and I really think that's going to be where he reminds people who he is. But right now, he's just bought into the future. He's bought into what Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper can be. Because De'Aaron Fox is not going to be here another 10 years like those two could potentially be. So right now, even though Fox is in the middle of his prime, realistically, he is also bought into winning a championship now, but also the future development for the rest of this team. That's the NBA experience from those guys. So, other experience, Victor Wembanyama. The guy's never played a lick of playoff basketball. Where's his experience come from? The kid has been playing professional basketball since he was 15 years old overseas. He has played in high-level games for all of his life. Let's not forget the 2024 gold medal game, which might be bigger than any NBA playoff game Victor Wembanyama could play for the rest of his life. Gold medal game in his home country against the literal Avengers. Wemby has 26 points, and it takes a Steph Curry magnet ball to take down Team France. Wemby will be a playoff riser. I fully expect it. He is ready for the moment, and when it comes, he is going to step up. Stephon Castle, he played for the Greg Popovich of college basketball and Dan Hurley and won a championship at UConn. These guys have winning experience right now. It's just not in the NBA, and sometimes that might be hard to translate. But the tendencies are there. The team has the ability. They've played in high-pressure games. I fully believe that guys like Stephon Castle and Victor Wembanyama are going to be fine. Those are the guys who have experience at a winning level, but the biggest question is, how do the role players step up? You know, the guys who have never been in the playoffs, such as Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson. I guarantee you Keldon Johnson, going to be a playoff riser. He's fine. Devin Vassell has some up and down consistency at times, but this is the first season where his role is finally more solidified than ever. He's been an important riser in important games this season. He had 23 in the NBA Cup game versus OKC. He had 35 versus Denver on the road without Castle and Wembanyama. And then he just had 28 points against Detroit on the road in a night where Wembanyama, Castle, and Fox were really struggling to get something going. He has the ability to average 20. I'm not saying he needs to average 20 in the playoffs, but he cannot simply just disappear by any means. That's what it has to be. Champagnie, certified 3-and-D wing. His role hasn't changed all season. His role will not change in the playoffs. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be comfortable. The biggest guys I'm worried about come playoff time are Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, the rookies. Obviously, Rutgers did not become the threat that everyone kind of expected them to when they landed Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I think come playoff time, Dylan Harper might be rattled the first few games, but I think this kid is very NBA ready. He's very pro ready. And once he finds a rhythm, once he's able to get a few shots going, he is going to be fine. The biggest question is Carter Bryant. What's going to happen to him? Because his role was very inconsistent at times. His minutes are very short, but I really think the sky is the limit for this kid. I think it really just depends on what the Spurs need in the heat of the moment. Because when they need him, he is a spark he provides. The kid plays with nothing but motor, passion, and energy. Things you simply just cannot teach. Carter Bryant does all of those things, and he does it on the defensive end. That's where he wants to make the name for himself. When he gets prolonged minutes, he really shines. But it all depends on how Mitch Johnson manages the rotations. And that's what I'm getting into here. I am not worried about the San Antonio Spurs players come playoff time. I am worried about Mitch Johnson because I have been very critical of Mitch Johnson this season. His highs are very high, but in my opinion, when the lows are there, they are very low. At times, there are plenty of poor rotations, no adjustments. I mentioned earlier how I don't like De'Aaron Fox playing off ball. That's a narrative I've been running with this season. But when Mitch Johnson coaches to these guys' strengths and just has this team ready to go, I really see what Mitch Johnson can be long-term for the San Antonio Spurs team. I really do. And come playoff time, the Spurs can only go as far as Mitch Johnson will take them. And that's what I believe. Most coaches in the playoffs, they have been here before at this point. They understand what it takes to win a 7-game playoff series. Mitch Johnson has seen those things to an extent, but he has not been at the helm yet for those decisions. But obviously, Mitch Johnson is a Greg Popovich protege. I think he's going to be fine and be ready for when the moment is here. There are going to be a lot of times where he can very easily be outcoached in the playoffs depending on the matchup that the Spurs get. And it might be up to his players to bail him out. But in important games, he has really coached his tail off. He really has. And the Spurs are able to go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league when he coaches the way he does in important games. If that is the version that Mitch Johnson brings to the Spurs come playoff time, this team is very capable of winning a championship. We saw it versus Oklahoma City. We've seen it versus Houston. We've seen it versus the Lakers and in the NBA Cup. We've seen it all throughout the season when Mitch Johnson just plays to these guys' strengths at another level and things just click. And that was what we saw on display against the Detroit Pistons. That was the gutsiest win of the season. Gutsier than any of the Oklahoma City games, and it wasn't even close. The whole time, the Pistons were just trying to play mind games. They were controlling the physicality. They were almost trying to fight at times. I mean, Cade Cunningham started throwing Stephon Castle to the ground for no reason. Keldon Johnson didn't have any of that. He got in his face, and he got a tech, and I love it. Cade Cunningham should have gotten a tech, but that's not the point. The point is, the Spurs had every right to bend at the Pistons' hand and lose composure because the Pistons were playing mind games all night. But they didn't. The Spurs did not budge. They stayed in their lane. They played their game, and they were the ones playing mind games with the Pistons all night. All night. The Spurs didn't freak out at all when Detroit gained any sort of momentum. They remained poised all night and had a response for everything that the Pistons were throwing their way. And what I mean by this is that is one of the most mature wins by the Spurs all season. Mitch Johnson can coach this team up to maturity. And it was on full display versus the Pistons. I have not seen that level of maturity in quite some time. If that is what the Spurs are getting from this team and from their coaches in playoff time, the ceiling is untapped. I think the best way that the Spurs can get off on the right foot in the playoffs is by having home court advantage. I think everybody on the team, both the players and Mitch Johnson, will benefit from having home court advantage of starting off their first playoff series in almost 7 years in front of the Frostbank Center crowd. That city is ready for playoff basketball. Even if it's just as a 2 seed, role players play better on their home court. It lets everyone be comfortable. The moments aren't as big. You don't feel the pressure of an away crowd and everything that comes with it. You get to sleep in your own bed for 5 days, whatever it may be. There's so much benefit to starting a series at home, and if the Spurs are able to hold on to the 2 seed, or at least just hold on to a top 4 seed, that helps them get off the right foot in the playoffs. And who knows, the Spurs could hold on to the 2 seed, maybe even make a push for the 1 seed. And if they do, that means the Spurs, at least at the 2 seed, they're hosting 2 rounds at home to get things started. Who knows what that could do for this team? If they somehow manage to close the gap on Oklahoma City and take the 1 seed, the West runs through San Antonio. The biggest questions are, how will the Spurs finish the regular season? Which players will rise come playoff time? And which version of Mitch Johnson are the Spurs going to get in the postseason? Sadly, I cannot answer any of those questions right now. But we'll all be along for the journey. And so if you want to see more Spurs content, make sure you subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Make sure you turn on that post notification bell so you never miss when I upload here at Ty Talk Sports, because man, it is good to be a Spurs fan again. We've been through some pains, guys. Y'all saw it all. I cried on live stream when the Spurs traded DeJounte Murray. I remember breaking down a Derek White trade. You know, the Celtics Derek White trade. I even talked about Derek White trade rumors for John Collins. Like, I've seen it, guys. I don't think y'all understand how great this feels to be on some winning basketball again. And so we're going to keep doing our thing over here. Like I said, subscribe for all the Spurs content around here. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads here. And until next time, this is Ty Talk Sports signing off, and I'll see you all next time.